Fraser. I'm a social anthropologist, currently working on a research project in the University of Cambridge. I'm originally, French South African. My mom is French, my dad is Scottish, but born in Johannesburg, South Africa, and I'm born there as well. So I have a French passport, but I guess I've never lived in France, so I don't really feel very French in that sense, you know. And then I grew up in South Africa until I was 7, and moved to Asia, Hong Kong, when I was 8, and then lived in a few places in Asia, including Singapore, and Malaysia for a little while. And then went to university in Sydney and did my undergraduate in anthropology there. And then did a master's degree in Holland and a PhD in Holland as well. And now in the UK. So because I grew up in Hong Kong, I guess from 8 until 16, and then I left, and then my parents moved back to Hong Kong. So Hong Kong became like our home, you know, like it was our base, and Hong Kong is a super international city in and of itself, and you have flows and movements, but also a kind of very unique history out of colonialism, British, Chinese history, etc. And this funny idea that Hong Kong will have a lease for 99 years to be a part of Britain and then go back to China. It's like such an absurd idea today. And because of that absurd idea, Hong Kong became something absurd in itself, you know. So because I grew up there, it was my home and it felt nice to be there. But because of the changeover and Hong Kong giving back to China, in order for people who had been there for a long time, in order to claim permanent residency, you had to have like an interview. And you have to sort of argue your case why I should be allowed to live in Hong Kong permanently. And I had to go for this interview, and I had to explain, Hong Kong is my home, and I feel at home here, etc. My family have been here for so many years, And then they take a decision, and then I get this letter to say, actually, sorry, you can't live here. You can't have permanent residency. Hong Kong can't be your home, you know. So it's a strange feeling in that sense. But it's also weird because you also don't feel like it's your home permanent. Like you can't really say it's your home, but I can't really say France is my home or South Africa is my home either, you know. So in that sense, I'm homeless. But Hong Kong would have been my home if, you know, officialdom had approved it. So obviously this is strange, you know. So the place I can go to, I guess, is Europe or France. I mean, the European Union is good in this sense because it can be mobile, but so France is the place I should, I guess, say I can go to, you know, but I really don't feel at home in France at all, so I don't see it in that way. I don't see it as a home, you know. So no, it's a weird experience, but I have friends and similar experiences in Hong Kong as well, and in Singapore, places like this. This weird sort of like, group of people who kind of float around and... But the truth is, if you want to go to places like this and you can work, you can have a working contract, and that's good, but it's also nice to say, you know, I can always go to that place, no matter what. But no, I think it's good to be mobile. I think the more schizophrenic you get, the less stationary you can get, you know. And mobility just becomes a kind of necessity, imposed from like outside, but also from inside, you know. I think ultimately it's outdated, but I think there's still some way to go until it gets to that point. And it's not so clear whether nation states will be replaced with some other kind of... Probably what will happen is that nation states will first be replaced by some other supranational entities, whether it be the European Union or Pan-American states, or which have some common ideology perhaps. But perhaps that's a good thing in the sense that it will, to some extent, reduce people's attachment to nation states and nationality. And I think that is ultimately the direction that the planet itself needs to go. So I think we've left this point of no return in terms of that, you know, where for now nation states will still continue to have an everlasting role or whatever, but I think ultimately the direction of travel is that people will abandon the sense of nationalities and difference. And I think that's what's needed, you know. It's complicated and it changes, you know, throughout my life, I guess, in different ways, different intensities relating to it, you know. So, I don't know. I think as soon as you move, or like when I moved out of South Africa, you immediately become aware of otherness in a different way, you know? And because of that, you then question your own, you know, boundedness as one nationality or ethnicity or whatever it is. And because my parents are already from different places, I guess, so it already is like a topic of discussion even at home, right? So that means, yeah, nationality becomes something a bit distant to you, as opposed to someone who's from one place and sees themselves as just one person. So you're kind of like schizophrenic from the beginning, you know? But then you sort of see that actually there's other things that is good by being schizophrenic, nationality-wise and ethnicity-wise. And yeah, you start to see more commonalities within the between the differences. And then you start to sort of see people on a nicer, more human level, I think. And that's the direction of travel it seems to be going in general, right? I think, you know, more travel, more interconnection, more flow, and especially technology-wise. So yeah, it's an interesting direction it goes in, I think. If you go to like, particularly like rural parts of China or Mongolia or Asia in general, I guess, and then you tell people where you're from, like this sense of boundedness comes back, because then they attach you with something that they think is, you know, characteristic of that place. So I say, let's say I'm French, you know, and then all of a sudden our conversations revolve around things that they imagine to be very French, you know, whether it be these cliches like wine or food or whatever it is, you know. And so then you somehow have to like navigate that, but you can't really give away too much of the story, because you can't really explain this transnational mobility to them, because they are quite localized, you know, so you have a different sense of that. But then, yeah, there's other things that are quite nice in terms of like playing on these different senses of nations, and so yeah, you have some interesting intercultural communication going on as well through that, you know, and this is nice. I think, you know, when you speak a language, you don't just speak it, you embody it, right? So you use your body, you do kind of communicate viscerally, differently, right? And it depends how well you speak the language, but I think even a bit, you know? And so, I don't know, if I speak French with my family or something, I think I do look and act different as well, and probably even dictate some of the stuff you talk about and how you think about things. But I mean, yeah, when you're speaking in the flow, it's so much of it is implicit, right? But when you're learning a new language, it's maybe a bit more difficult, because you also have to learn to actually move differently, you know? So, you know, if you learn a language you're totally not familiar with or something, you know, like Chinese or whatever it is, you have to kind of, yeah, sort of let go of your body in a different way, you know? And this is quite interesting also, you know? To sort of experience the other really in your body, you know? So you do expressions that only that language would have. So that means the more languages you speak, the more worlds you can kind of come to embody, which is, you know, which is a kind of ultimate lesson of, you know, understanding each other, right? So this is a nice idea. I like this about anthropology, that you kind of have to, like you get thrown into another world, whatever it is, urban or rural, you know, Western or non-Western, it doesn't really matter. It's another world that you're not familiar with, you know? It can be a world on your neighborhood. And in order to understand that world, you have to learn a language, usually a foreign language, but it doesn't even have to be. It can be like a different way of speaking in a different neighborhood, you know? And then yeah, that's the experience of human difference and human sameness, which comes out of that. Yeah, I don't know, it also changes over the years, you know? And I guess home was like initially wherever your family is, you know? So Hong Kong was my home, or South Africa was my home, and then, but my family are all over the place as well now, so I think more and more home is just where I am, you know? Which means home is mobile too, you know? And yeah, I think also different ways of conceptualizing home and also family in general, right? And you know, new forms of living and new forms of family emerge, where you don't always have to live with a partner or, you know, a group of, you know, people who you've known for a long time, you know. If you're mobile and you can have networks of friends and families in other parts of the world, it's also interesting ways of sort of sharing a family life, you know. So I kind of would like to do more of this, I think. And then also the fusion between life and work is also sort of tied in with it, you know. So you're in contact with people who you perhaps know through your work or research or whatever it is, but actually those people may also be people who you end up meeting or having other forms of, you know, life with in other settings, you know. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I just think that things like globalization, transnationalism, flow, this whole discussion about the so-called contemporary era that we live in, of course it has like a precedent in time, you know. People have always moved. There's always been flows. Goods have always circulated. This is, you know, definitely true. But there is something transformative, I think, about today or the present time or a few years back and certainly into the future. And particularly in terms of like communication and new technologies, you know. Just because of the way in which this has sped up integration and communication, I think this is going to be something very, very significant. And then what comes with that are new forms of identity and new kinds of relationships, and then that has a really important political kind of role, because the more people communicate, the more people see each other's worlds, the more, you know, radical kind of politics and radical issues will become more present, I think, on a kind of global scale. And I think that's why it's an interesting, actually, time to be alive now. With all the discussion about like flows and movements and flexible identities, there's also a kind of downside to the sort of schizophrenic existence that you can lead, you know, which is that it can be difficult and hard and, you know, disorientating as well for people to move. And it's depending on how you are and what you do with this that counts, you know. And I think it's at that point that you sort of have to form a new identity, and you have to sort of take on some kind of conscious transnational sort of concept of yourself and actually throw away aspects of your previous, perhaps nation-bound sense of self, you know. And if you do that, then you do get a sense of meaning, because like what we said, you know, you can come into contact with people who are like-minded, you know. And what's also interesting, I think, with that is how not just that they come from other parts of the world, and what you have in common is your mobility, what you have in common is, you know, this detachment from some previous nation state or whatever it is. But what's also interesting is how people do so many different things. And the crossover between work and life is something that becomes really, really fluid. You know? And yeah, you also find, I don't know if it's generational even, perhaps it is generational to some extent. I don't know, I think in a way it is, to be honest, a sign of things to come, you know, it's a sign of the future. It's just that that particular generation, through force of political, economic circumstances and things that have changed for them and new opportunities, and has created that kind of mobile world, you know, and that'll increase.
You can live in one country for a lot of years and never understand it. It's not about understanding, it's more about feeling, I guess. That's why a lot of people move and they don't like, and then at some point you arrive to some city or and you just feel it, you feel the atmosphere, and it's like with love, I guess. You can't explain it. It's my home now, but now I have two homes. St. Petersburg will be always for me home. Before going there, I feel nostalgic. After coming from there, I feel nostalgic.
My family is from Athens, but I grew up in a small city between Athens and Patras, because my parents feel that they need to grow the children in a countryside, which is good.
I already lost my social life.
But I went back to Athens to study, and I spent my years there until I was 26. Where I moved to Barcelona to do a master, then I came back to Athens. There was a crisis already in Greece. I moved to Cyprus for my job. I'm an architect.
If the person is talking
and after 1 year and a half in Cyprus, I moved to Italy. So I'm here the last 2 years, more or less. Italy, good question. You know what they say, that the Greeks and the Italians, una faccia, una razza. So with the Italians, we already have this connection. We feel friendly, we feel connected, the food is almost similar, although we have a fight which food is better, the Greek or the Italian. But to say the truth, when I moved here, I already had friends, which is it was easier for me. I had my relationship, okay, but I don't know, I think in Greece we are more extroversial, so for get adapted here, at the beginning you feel, they are friendly, but you feel a bit of a distance. Not for a long period, but you feel. And then I felt they are totally open and totally friendly, so now it feels like home. There's not a big difference at all between the Greeks and the Italians and the life here. The connection between the people and the relationship, it's more or less the same. As I'm doing now, we have the same body language, we have the same eye contact. We're not afraid to express ourselves. We shout a lot, we talk a lot. We have these similarities. I do a PhD here at the university. Every time I have to present, and my name is Fotopoulou.
So you are saying like
they cannot read it, or it's Fotopoulou, or it's at the end Foto, okay, la Greca. So I'm always the Greek. Not in a bad way, but you know, even from my name, and second of all, nobody speaks my language, which is something that it's strange. I have to Skype with my friends in Greece and my family to keep talking in Greek. So this is a part that you feel a bit disconnected. You have to adapt yourself with the language. But you have to speak Italian, I understand, of course. Why to speak English? We are in Italy. And this creates an issue that you're different. I don't speak Italian in a very good level, first of all. So it's easier for me. I start speaking English because my friends are very polite with me and they still speak English with me after 2 years. Yes, I cannot express myself totally in Italian. I try, I do mistakes. But as I'm Greek, I talk a lot, so if I was speaking Greek, it would be totally different as I do with English or Italian. English a bit better, but still, it's not the same thing. So I have created my own language. Like in my house with my boyfriend, we speak 4 languages. I have created my own language of whatever, the body language and 3 more, so... you know, moving around the countries, being an immigrant, even if you have friends, you are always alone, always. So you have to spend time with yourself. And the first month in Cyprus, I spent a lot of time with myself, having an inner psychology analysis. And I changed there. I became more mature. I changed my idea about life, about what it means to be independent, which is very important for me. That's why I'm moving all around. And so the more you move, the more you change, the more you get easily adapted. So now I'm not afraid to move again. It's once you do the start, it's easier. You change, every time you change. You get things, I hope positive, from each country. You have to be adapted because you are in their country. You have to get used to it, you have to learn the habits, you have to learn the timing, how they eat. Another thing that it's difficult for me. The restaurants, for example, here after 10, you can find nothing to eat. I'm not used like this. I have to get adapted. I cannot say, in Greece we have this, here it's not good. The comparison is never good because you will never be happy in the place you stay. So you change, of course. How to say? I start to realize what is really important in life. I start to see other small things that become important to you, that you haven't realized that they are important. And I change in the way I live, my way of thinking, and what I want for my future, for example. I realized that I changed, to say the truth, every time I go back to Greece, that you say, okay, you go back, you see your friends, your family, it feels like home. No, even Greece now, it doesn't feel like home. And I change, I see the difference of the mentality. And even there, I don't want to say, in Italy we do this, and so here is bad or worse. You know, also now Greece is in a very difficult situation. But once you get far, once you go far from a problem or a situation, then you realize some things that you have to change or you have to keep. So this is what happened with me. I'm more open to new experiences and I'm more I criticize more situations that I was accepting because I was living to that situation. So when you move around and you see different things, different problems, different mentalities, you learn to accept and to accept. What does it mean? Home now, I think it means where you feel relaxed and comfortable, which in this period of my life, it's here, in Bologna. Even I have difficulties with the job, of course, and the language, but it's still, I go to Greece, I do vacation, everything is amazing, but there is a point that I don't feel that I have a base there, because the house of my parents is the house of my parents. My house is here. This is the reality now. I would like to stay, but if there is another opportunity, I would like to move also. It's not a problem for me. Future is unpredictable, my job is unpredictable, relationships is, I don't know. For now, I'm okay. But you know, the thing is that there are people that they are moving. For example, 50% of my architect friends, they have moved to other countries because they had a good contract with the job. It's a total different situation. If you move and you know that you have security, you have a job, you move more relaxed. If you move because you just need to change your life, is another kind of decision. And this is what I have done the last 3 years. I'm just changing my life, trying to find the base. So, yes, of course, if I have a contract, let's say, in another country, which is good or whatever, maybe, but I have to think about it also, because maybe it's not the kind of life that I would like to live. So it's always also in the moment of your life where you are. But in general, I think it's in my blood, the moving around, because my grandmother, she moved to the United States to work when she was like 40, stayed 20 years. The family of my mother, they are Greeks that they grew up in Egypt. So my mother was born and grew up in Egypt, and then she moved back to Greece. So we have this, it's in our blood, I think, it's a family thing. Because it's not a cultural thing in Greece, people to move. In Greece, the society is very close. They are still having this situation that the parents build the house for their children to get married next to them or above them, so they create these small communities, still now, in 2014. I don't know if it is conservative or they're just afraid of some things. Come on, now Europe is open. I mean, if someone is afraid and doesn't want to go to live in New Zealand, for example, which is very good, I have heard, but it's nothing, there's no border, it's everything, it's like 2 hours by plane, come on, it's stupid to be afraid, not to live and experience. If you don't have conditions that you have to stay at the place for a reason, you should take the chance to meet. It's good for your mentality, it's good. Like 3 years ago, that we had the crisis really strong, and I traveled in a country north of Europe, doesn't matter the country, but we were talking with someone, asking directions, everything was okay. When they heard that we were Greeks, they look at us in a way that, you're poor, why you're traveling? How come you travel? You know, nowadays we have this, they point us out with the finger. If you're Greek, you have to be poor and you are not allowed to do things in your life because you have a difficult situation, you created problems all over Europe. It's this sense also. The problem is that, for example, when I'm in Greece or when I was living there, I could see all the bad situations and I was criticizing a lot, of course. I don't like this, I don't like that, the government, blah, blah, blah. When I'm out of Greece, like here, even if I can still see the bad things of my country, I feel that I have to support. I don't like when people that they are not from Greece speak bad about things that they do not know from the root, you know. So I feel sometimes more Greek here than when I feel when I'm in my country. It's strange.
North of São Paulo.
I like my experience
And I moved to Italy
outside
4
of
years
Greece,
ago.
in Europe. I like, and here the truth is that from Italy it's easy to travel all around Europe. It's more easy with the train or the car. You can visit other countries. So this I like. I have the opportunity now to explore. And I speak also other languages, so for me, I like. So it's
big
nice when you,
life.
wherever you move, you get something. When the language is something really important. When you move there, you have to speak the language.
And I moved to Italy.
My father is always angry with me talking on Skype. Why do you speak English? Why do you not read the Italian literature? You live in Italy, you have to live this 100%. You chose to be in Italy, be in Italy, be Italian.
To travel a lot.
And the most important thing that, as I said in the beginning, if you move to another country, is
to stay here.
even if the condition is really good, even if you have a social network, you always feel not alone, but you feel an individual. And it's good, you have to, it's a good way to know and recognize yourself. It's a good experience. And this is the most interesting thing I found from my moving around. I really changed. And my parents told me that, wow, you have changed in a good way, because you learn how to live by yourself, which is very important. At the end, it's you.
In Italy, I think
there are the friends, the family, but at the
we
end,
have a very good condition to live because we have a very good food. So when we have food, we can live without problems. It's Europe. We have a big difference between Europe and the rest of the world, unfortunately. But it's true. Maybe the crisis people say about the money, or you have money, but the structure and the country is totally different. For me, there's no comparison. You cannot compare how it is to live here, to live there, in this sense. Maybe you can find a very nice thing to do also, of course. But it depends what you want in your life. I had my first experience in Europe. It was one trip that I did in 2008 for 1 month, just to know, like. And for me, it was really exciting because, of course, I did history. So when I came here to visit the museum, the place, it was really interesting. And of course, I was really excited to come back to see more. It was what I wanted to do. When I come back to Brazil, I worked more 2 years, and then I decided to leave, definitely. The only thing that I miss in Brazil, of course, is the culture in general, the good things, the music, the people sometimes, my family, my friends. But I have to choose what we want. You cannot take everything. It's because when you travel a lot, for sure you have to take some things of the place that you visit. You change it all the time. When you go, you come back another people, another person. And of course, if you live in another country, you cannot live thinking about your first place all the time, because you cannot live, you cannot enjoy what you are doing there. And the good things of Italy, of course, I really love it. The culture, the food, the coffee, the wine, the cheese, the people, the interaction, the meeting, these I like. In Brazil I had this also. I had a different way, but I had the same thing. So I can find in Italy the thing that I had in Brazil, but in a different way. So I really like and I miss Italy when I come back to Brazil to visit my family, my friends. I miss something that I have here, the condition of life, the way of life. We have different reasons to move. Sometimes most of the immigration, the people move because of they needed to move. It's a socio-economic condition to move. And sometimes we don't have the support of the country. It's not very easy to move. It's not very easy to be acceptable by the others. We have the prejudice. Wherever you go, we can see this. I had a lot of troubles in the last 4 years with the prejudice, or because I'm Brazilian, I don't know why. Oh, I know why, but I suppose why. In the airport or when I was traveling, when I'm learning Italian, I met some guys at the beginning. It was strange because they couldn't accept my wrong way to speak. That's why I'm so strict now to. So it's this kind of thing that we cannot understand the other sometimes, or we don't want to understand because they are wrong in our point of view. And sometimes we create an image of a place where everybody is the same. And this has happened. This. Unfortunately, we can see this. He's Brazil, or he's, I don't know, South America, Latin America, or he's African, or he's. Everybody's the same. They're not European. So they have to be civilized. Sometimes, of course, it's not a political. You can see in all the place, but sometimes you feel this on the air. But I think the time is changing. I hope. Depends. I don't like whether it's good or bad. Depends. I'm not so positive in this sense to see how it's getting better. Maybe yes, depends. But they say Brazil is getting better also, but the economy, but the social part is like this. So it depends what is better. For someone, better is to take money to be rich, or better is what? Better for me is to be myself. This is better for me. Or try to live in the way that we like it to live. It's interesting. This is better. When we can be human beings like we believe. This is my point of view. That's why I try to build my life in this sense, in this way. I think it is impossible not to change when you go to visit some place. The problem is some people. I mean, I think most of the people, we keep a solid structure about our mentality or our culture, and we cannot accept. This is the problem. We cannot accept the different. And sometimes we go. It's nice to visit a different place, but okay, we keep our point of view. Especially when we're talking about religion or I don't know, tradition. Okay, it's nice to see the different point of views, but okay, we are the best, no? I think when we go to visit some different place, if we are open, we cannot be solid anymore. We are more flexible and liquid to understand. And this for me was good. I'm traveling a lot. And,
I'm 30 years old. I live here in Italy since 2003. And I work for the Museo della Città di Bologna. I came here in 2003 for the university. I've just graduated from high school, and I moved to Italy because I wanted to have some university experience abroad. But initially I thought that sooner or later I would come back to Poland, but then after I have graduated, I got my bachelor, the master's degree, and I just more or less remained here. So it's been 11 years now. I don't feel Italian. Actually, I don't even feel like Polish very much. I mean, I feel kind of European. It's more about the pattern of thinking, I guess. Well, of course, when I'm in Italy, I think in Italian. When I'm in Poland, I think in Polish. There's always for example, when I go back to Poland for like holidays, then I need like 1 or 2 days for the complete switch, because when I go there, first I speak Polish, but then I actually think a little bit in Italian, and the same when I come back here. Yeah, but I think the language
It's
has a certain influence on the way you think, feel, perceive the reality, and yeah. So here I am more Italian, of course, than when I'm in Poland or anywhere else. You know, there are many stereotypes. Some of them are more or less correct, others not. But yeah, of course, in Italy, the way of living is more relaxed in a way. People have more fun. I think they're a little bit, I mean, maybe it's also, I mean, there are many reasons for that, historical, cultural, climatic, or also the cuisine and everything. While in Poland, the people are a little bit more, I don't want to say rigid, but a little bit colder, maybe a little bit less friendly, a little bit more introverts and not so emotional about everything. So yes, of course, there are many differences in the way of being, thinking, and expressing oneself. I cannot be like, ciao, come stai? You know, in Poland, everything's a little bit more at a distance. Well, you know, of course, every state contains a lot of, is a container. I'm actually against the state. I'm kind of anarchic, so I don't really like the idea of a national state. Yeah, I mean, the actual borders, they contain inside many cultures, and I think it's a great thing. I don't really like the borders, so it's just prefer them to go away. So I like the mix of cultures. I think that when the cultures meet, they communicate. That I think that brings creativity. So I think it's very important, the exchange of cultures, thoughts, religions, and everything, different points of view. In general, the economic crisis in general, when people get poorer, unfortunately that brings more borders, I think, so that's not a good thing, of course. And when the people and cultures are richer, I think, with richer, I mean not just a small group of people with others being poor, but like when more people are rich, that can open borders, but I mean borders not only political ones, but in general, borders like mind borders. I don't know what the trend will be in the future, but I hope there will be. I mean, I like differences. I'm not saying that. Of course, there will be like different things. I don't want everybody think the same and be the same and act the same. I like the difference, but without borders. Yeah.
I study psychology and anthropology.
You could say that people migrate more, but I'm not very sure that it is the case. I mean, they are moving the single, I mean, like single individuals, they move, I guess, more than they used to once, but I think it's a kind of a myth that people would not move before, even in the ancient times. They actually did move, and quite a lot. You could see like travelers from everywhere, and of course we can travel much faster. For example, once if you could move like only 100 kilometers, it would be a long trip. Now it's nothing. So it's easier and probably cheaper to move, but I think that people have actually moved always.
Because I wanted to stay in Italy.
Moving can open your eyes to many things which before you would not notice if you stay just in one place. Changing the point of perspective can help you think in a different way and question yourself and start also thinking, for example, about religion from a more critical point of view. Then of course, if you believe in something that's very personal, it's a different question, but for religion, I mean more, more like church and institutionalized thing. Moving actually, I think, helps you think in a much more critical way about everything. If you just stay in one country, I don't know, for example, if I stay only in Poland, you see the parties which are dominant, you see the left, the right, the center, and the others, and you kind of think about politics in that way. And when I moved to Italy, everything was so different, so actually it's kind of a paradox, but probably this sometimes the left and right, they actually are quite exactly opposite in another country, which also makes you think that there's such a huge diversity that there's no point about being like so strict about thinking about anything, because if you only move outside your countryyard, then everything can be exactly
from a lot of different cultures and countries, and it opened me a lot. So I feel a different person. I hope that's a good thing, but I feel different. There were times, difficult times, there were easy times, but in the big picture, I can say that I enjoyed it, and I love this dynamic. In the beginning, I wasn't thinking about staying for 5 years, and now I'm thinking even longer. It was a 9-month project, and my schedule for 9 months, but something kept me here. And it's a warm feeling that I felt. Also, people. It's a very big part, I think. Mine was a need to come here, but it was a personal need, not a social or political need, because from Turkey or Kurdistan, there are a lot of people migrating also outside Turkey with different motivations. Mine was not personal. To know myself, to make another step. Migration is a very important step for this, but also within the migration, to come faced with the diversity is the most, I think. The more diverse things and diverse people that you get to know, the more open you are. It comes a bit more different. I think it's getting more open, and somehow it's getting more closer in the end, because it's so easy to communicate now. So I think in the long run it creates a bit closure also, because it becomes so easy. So maybe people become more lazy to try. I don't know, the communication, it's obviously is a huge progress and allows easy communication. It's a good thing. Mine is a paranoia. It becomes too easy for people to communicate that they won't effort anymore. So it's a bit paranoia. I am not a very nationalistic person, so I'd say it doesn't mean a lot to me to be Turkish. I carry the culture, the habits, the origins, but being a nationalistic Turkish, I don't carry it, so I don't live it, so I don't think that I reflect it also when I'm in relation with others. But I still don't know. I still don't see that it's that easy to maybe within European countries, but outside it's not that easy. It's still very visible and sensible, the sense of borders, limits. I hope someday it will become more easy to pass by, more fluid, because it's not easy. I hope that people see me as being myself, but of course with their cultural, personal, ethnical background. I mean, we always carry our identity, as a huge complex. Our origins are where do we come from, our family, it's all a package, so it's in the background, but I hope in the figure they see me as myself. I found it's a very important and interesting argument, this migration, migrate, people moving, crossing borders, and they are searching for something. It can be political, it can be personal, but there's a movement.